You need to know if something can be built. You don't have to know how to build it yourself. You just
Right.
have to know that it can be done, and that if you can get the money from Silicon Valley or something, you can hire the engineers to build it for you.
Wes Boudville, thank you so much for joining me on 20-Minute Leaders. Welcome to my show. How are you?
Hello, fine. I'm calling from Los Angeles, and the weather is cloudy.
Wonderful. Well, I'm calling from Tel Aviv. It's been cloudy all week, but Wes, the reason why I'm so excited to chat with you, besides your energy and enthusiasm, is I get to talk to an inventor in front of me, and I love talking to inventors because I consider myself an inventor in many capacities. But the way that you've done it over the past years, and holding patents and creating these innovative technologies based on real problems, I think it's fascinating. So Wes, give me a little bit of background as to who you are and why do you consider yourself an inventor?
I came to America in 1983 to Los Angeles to get my Ph.D. in theoretical physics, and from CalTech in LA, and I did that, and then I stayed in Los Angeles ever since. And so I've lived here much longer than I have in Australia, where I'm from, and I'm a first generation Australian. I was born in Malaysia. I'm Chinese mostly, and I have a French surname. It's one of these accidents of history, but in Stanford, you guys are used to that too. You get people from everywhere.
100%. So Wes, how do you stumble upon this idea of innovation and invention?
Oh,
What does that
um,
even mean to you?
because I stumbled on it. That's the right way to put it. I'm trained as a physicist. I got 2 degrees in physics, and then I made my living after I got my PhD as a computer programmer, because this was 1989, and back just the web was born that year, and there were plenty of jobs for programmers. But during the dot-com years, I joined a dot-com startup, and it failed like most of them did. But then I got hit with a startup bug, and I've been in the startup scene ever since. And in 2008, I I stopped programming. I programmed computers from 1979 to 2008, 40 years. I started in Fortran, I ended in Java, but then I went into actually filing patent applications for myself, and it was by now I have 20 U.S. patents under my own name. I'm single author on 19 of them, and 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 it's all engineering. So I started off as a physicist, but now I'm an engineer. But I feel like I want to do this for the rest of my life. I'm very lucky because for this, yeah, a lot of people are not in their jobs. And I really I feel like I'm in grad school back at CalTech 30 years ago because I'm doing research and I'm doing it for myself.
Wes, that's one of the most inspiring things I've heard in more than 300 episodes. Uh, Tell me a little bit about these inventions, these patents that you've
Oh, okay.
created. What are some of them like?
Sure. I have my 20 patents in 2 groups. The first group of 7 patents, it's on barcodes, like QR codes, 2-dimensional barcodes. And my patents for that are to control a screen, an electronic screen, a flat screen that's near you, a big flat screen that shows an image, and the image shows a barcode. And so you take out your cell phone and you take a photo of the barcode, and you get on your cell phone a a web page, and that web page has buttons you can click, things you can do, and you can control the big screen in front of you, the big flat screen. and
Right.
and okay, now that's the abstract. The practical case is in a if you're a pedestrian on the street and you're looking at a shop window. Inside the shop window behind the glass is a big flat screen showing something for sale with a barcode. When you scan the barcode, you get a search box on your phone, a web page. The search box, pretend it's Google or something, and you type dresses, and then but when you hit return, the results are not shown on your phone. They're shown on the big flat screen behind the glass. And so if it's a dress or a hat or a shirt, you can see it life size, and you can search the shop's entire inventory. That's important because it solves a problem that stood 400 years, ever since shop windows were invented. The shop window is too small to show all the goods. So every few months, a shop manager has to refresh the window physically.
Right.
She puts in new things. Well, now she can still do that, but now you can you search for whatever you want, and then it'll display in big size.
That makes a lot of sense. Wes, how do you stumble upon that invention? So I want to take this and explore this a little bit more broadly about what it means to be an inventor. And so what I would love to hear from you is sort of with these inventions, how did you even think of them? Because I'm guessing that you're not too much into retail and fashion. You're not an expert in retail or fashion. So how do you go ahead and create a patent based on retail and fashion?
That's right. That's the hardest and still the most mysterious thing for anybody, unless you were Thomas Edison. He had 1,000 patents. But the hardest thing is that at the core of the innovative process. And the good thing, one thing is that you need a good and technical education. You don't have to be an engineer or scientist, but it helps. But you need to know if something can be built. You don't have to know how to build it yourself. You just have to know that it can be done, and that if you can get the money from Silicon Valley or something, you can hire the engineers to build it for you. But so I guess for me, with the barcode thing, I imagined it, and I got the patents on it, but I just like a remote control of a screen. That's what I was thinking of, without being able to touch it. Or what I'm doing right now, my main focus on most of my 13 other patents are an alternative to domains or domain name system. And domains were used in the 1970s because when the internet was born, there were no domains. So you would then like email, or I log into like John at, and then you give an internet address if you said UCLA, but nobody wanted to remember that. So domains themselves were invented so that people could write John at UCLA.edu or John at Stanford.edu.
I didn't know that's why domains were invented, by the way.
Domains actually are older than the web. The web is 1989. The World Wide Web, HTML, 1989. Before that, people had people had email addresses at Stanford, UCLA, CalTech, and also at HP. So, but yeah, domain, because the first killer app of the internet was probably email, and email needed domain. Email helped create domains, and then the second killer app was really the web later on.
For sure. So then talk to me a little bit about this, about more broadly this domain problem, and why do you need 13 patents to address it?
The domains, or DNS, which is domain name system, it was invented so that you did not have to memorize an internet address, which were then like 10.15.25.128. Something, it's meaningless, even for engineers. And back then, when domains were invented, the only users of the web sending email were the hardcore researchers. There's no money. There were engineers and professors and grad students throughout the US. So these were serious people, but even they could see the immediate use of a domain name system. MIT.edu is simple to remember.
Sure.
And so there are things like this. And so in what I'm doing right now with this thing called Linkets, which are an alternative to domains, I faced a similar problem of people having to memorize too long alphanumeric strings that didn't really mean anything. But then I realized, and so I remember that day I was walking to a park in Pasadena, and I just was thinking about this problem. Then I realized that we, the human race, were here before in the 1970s and 80s. That then they had a problem of trying to remember internet addresses. So you avoid that problem. DNS is the solution to that. Here they had something called deep links, which were actually invented in Silicon Valley in the early 2010s. And I put it, but the deep links have these too long strings. One string is just like an app ID in an app store, but nobody really wants to remember an app ID, even if you could.
Of course.
Yeah, and so I just came up with the idea of just putting a label on it, and I just had to call the label something. I couldn't call it domains because that's not quite what it is. So I just thought Linket, because like LinkedIn and all that link, it's a connection. And and also the big thing for mine was that right now they use something called Unicode, which you know about if you're a computer programmer. Unicode is a way to represent every written human language. Domains are really A to Z, because when they were invented, late 70s, that's all we had. Unicode didn't exist. And so the American engineers who invented DNS, they weren't trying to act against other countries, to discriminate against other countries. They were just saying that because it turns out domains, you can't, even for European languages written in the Roman alphabet, all the other European languages have accents. So so the
Right.
Spaniards have the tilde over the N, but you can't do a tilde domain. You can't do French, German, Italian, none of them. Let alone the other languages would use different alphabets, like Cyrillic, Greek, Hebrew, Arabic,
Right.
and all. No, you just can't. So right now, with my stuff with Linket, I start with Unicode, which means I can do all the languages from scratch right now.
Wow. So what does that actually, how do you actually see this unfold? You mentioned that you've written a series of patents to go about this. Even before we continue with Linket, talk to me about the process of writing a patent. You sit down and you have this idea. How does it actually work end to end?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Actually, I taught classes in this, like, patenting your invention. Yeah, exactly. It turns out if you're an engineer and if you have an undergraduate degree in engineering or science, you can basically write a patent. You have enough technical training to do that. Because it's just like you're writing, like if you're a senior in engineering, you're writing a term paper in your senior year on some of your work in the lab. And like where you're told to pretend that you're submitting it to an academic journal, and maybe you are, maybe your professor is. It's the same sort of thing. You have to use formal language, but you don't need to use any legal language, despite what a patent attorney might say to you. And here's the thing: like in San Francisco, when you use a patent attorney, everything's more expensive there in San Francisco. Well, you already knew that, but it can cost easily $5,000 to file a patent application, and that's just to pay the attorney, and it's about $500 to pay the government, and then you wait. Oh, but if you are into startups, you guys, one of the things to do, the good thing to do is that if you have an idea about a patent application, if you have to, you pay an attorney or you do it yourself, whatever. You file the patent application, let's say next week, and then but the government gets it, but nothing will happen for the next 18 months. So then you would go with your receipt. You get a serial number of the patent application,
Sure.
And then you use that to show like investors, angels, and VCs, and you can build it out if you can afford it. Like if it's a mechanical thing, if it's software, because you have 18 months where nothing will happen with your patent application. So that's the way to do it. You should not file you shouldn't build it first and file, because you lose the time, and time is everything.
So what happens if you file a patent and then within those 18 months you have other people that are filing those provisional patents?
Yeah,
on a similar idea.
Well, that's just it. Okay, that 18 months you just don't know. You really don't know, because the provisionals they aren't published, or even the patents pending, which is what I do. I do not file provisionals. I file the full patents pending, a patent pending. That's a bit more expensive, but anyway, for the 18 months, your application won't be published, so nobody else could see it for 18 months. But it also means you can't see, so you don't know that in that next 18 months, if somebody else actually did it early before you. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking, especially if you have a valuable idea. Now, the following is just like empirical, but put it this way: in that 18 months, every week, like for example, when you look at the new patent applications, they're published every week. If you don't see somebody else coming up with your idea, then every week the odds improve that your idea was the first. It's not a proof, but it's like playing the odds.
Of course.
Especially, and it increases the odds that Google and Microsoft and other big companies have in your idea, because once they have filed a patent application, they don't have to wait, or they or you. Once you get that receipt back from the government, you can talk about it the next day.
Right.
18, right. And so when you don't, and Google or Microsoft, if they have filed a patent application like of the same idea as yours, like yesterday, then today they can just publicize. They can publish themselves. On their blog, whatever.
Of course.
They were allowed to do that legally, and they have all the money in the world to do that, to scare people away. If they don't do that, they probably haven't done that.
Yeah. I love that. I love the rationale. So Wes, tell me a little bit about Linket. You've written your last few patents based on this, on the domain space. From my understanding, what you're trying to do is you're trying to democratize these domains so that really we can use Unicode, which really is any character that we have on our computer to create those domains. Why are you doing that, and what are the possible implications of doing
okay.
such a thing?
The big first problem is that for the last 20 years, the top .com domains that are English words have been bought by people who speculate. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying this is what they've done. And today the speculators are called domainers. Some of them do this full-time for a living. So they bought
What does that mean? What do they do?
Oh, they bought like a domain, like these are the .com domains, because the most valuable domains right now are still in the .com space. And so it'd be like reason.com or ramen.com or curry.com, things with commercial value.
So by the way, why is .com valuable? Mainly because that's what people are used to, or is there? Yes. That's the only reason, right?
Right. And so, but there's no intrinsic reason for this, okay? Right. But as a result of that, there were now 1,000 top-level domains. Whereas in the year 2000, there was about 200 TLDs. The 200 TLDs then were basically like the .com, like the 5 or 6 original TLDs, plus the TLDs that were country codes, the 2-letter country codes, .uk, .au, all those. And then they added 800 more in the last 20 years, mostly in the last 10 years. Those are doing okay, but nobody's really making much money in it, from what I understand. So anybody can still get a domain if you don't really care what the suffix is, what the TLD you're in. But by reasons of prestige, and like the .com years were responsible for this. Even the name .com, it was the something.com where the money
bubble, right?
So
100%.
Yeah. So that's
so what are you trying to do now with removing that? Removing that ending.
What it means is that today, if you are some startup in Silicon Valley, for example, and you want to get like you want a food sub or something, and you want to get like ramen.com because maybe you sell like Indian food or something. Just say like for that you'd like to get ramen.com, but let's just say you go there and you look and somebody else owns it and they want $20,000 for it. Now maybe they want less. Sometimes they could want more. They can ask whatever amount they want. Now, to give you an actual number, business.com in 1993, somebody bought that directly from VeriSign for the first time, and they paid like back then the standard price, which is like $300 a year, something like that. In 1999, at the height of the .com, it was sold for about $5 million. $5 million at that time, and it's something like that. It's in the records. But that's. And the price that the buyer bought it for the $5 million the buyer paid was probably still a good deal, because since 1999 the web has grown and grown, and like we added over 1 billion people in India, China, Europe, as well as America, and so you can imagine. So that's right. And so right now, what we're doing is that we are selling these Linkets, $15. That's 1.5, and so that's 2 or 3 orders of magnitude cheaper than you can buy for the .com, the equivalent .com domain from a domainer.
How do they look?
Right. So instead of I use the example of ramen.com. I don't really know how much it's going for, but let's just say somebody was wanting like $20,000. That's about reasonable. The equivalent Linket is just ramen. The word ramen in square brackets.
That's ramen in square brackets.
Yeah, and we're selling that for $15, 1.5. So it's 3 orders of magnitude less than $20,000.
But wait, I have a question, because this is all about supply and demand, right? I mean, it's basic economics. The reason why Robin.com is high in price is because you have a lot of potential buyers. So you increase the price. But now let's say that somebody buys from you for $15, the square brackets Robin, and now there's going to be a demand as people transition to Linkets instead of the .com. You're going to be the mainstream. So it's going to be again a seller's market, right?
I think we're selling too low right now, but we are just starting. And so we have to. Price is one of our main advantages right now. And later on, we will sell. But we also have a reserved list, because this is what the domain registrars are doing today already. Some of the domains right now, they'll sell at high prices. We have a reserved list of certain words, like basically right now it's English words. Certain words like Intel, which doesn't mean Intel Corporation, the chip maker. It just Intel means intelligence, like military intelligence. So Intel, nobody. So we'll sell like the Linket, just Intel, the Linket, computer. So all of these we reserve, and we'll start selling these off like 2 or 3 years down the road. We'll auction it off. So we're going to let the market decide. And our reserve list right now is about 20,000 reserved Linkets. We're going to grow that to 100,000 because since we do Unicode, we are going to use like the word Intel. We will reserve that in French, in Italian, and German, and in Chinese. All of these. So essentially, right now with domains, with the domainers, everybody's working in English basically.
Right.
But now in Linkets, it's dictionaries in every language, so we can just do it over again, and that's how we want to make our money one day.
I think that's just spectacular. And so Linket, I'm guessing it's a company that is now running, and is it actually active? Like, does it work that I can actually use square brackets to go to websites?
Yeah, I mean, people can go on it. They can apply, and then if nobody has it, then we'll send. They can buy it from us. If it's not on our reserve list, we'll sell it to them. And then we have instructions, which are, this is our alpha version. We have instructions on how they can, if they were a coder, if they were a computer programmer, how they can like mod their web pages to use the Linkets. It's early days right now. There's a long way to go. But right now, I'd like to think that right now it's like in 1992 when you could buy business.com for the first time. Even if you didn't know how to write a web page, even if you didn't know HTML, just owning, because when you buy a domain today, even today, you still don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to put a website on. You can just own it.
I remember we have an interesting story. My uncle bought shoes.com many years ago, and it obviously became very valuable. And it actually prompted him and his partners to start a company called shoes.com, which later sold. But I definitely understand the value of domains. But Wes, I want to thank you for being so generous with your time. This was I love this conversation, so much energy, and I just love going all the way back to the beginning. You saying how lucky you are to be in a place where you feel like you're back in grad school in CalTech and doing these extraordinary research things, and I just love your passion and enthusiasm. So thank you for sharing that. Before we leave, the hardest question. I need 3 words that you would use to describe yourself.
Intelligent, inventor, engineer.
I love that. Wes, thank you very much. Best of luck with Linket. I'm going to go buy my own Linket right now. Thank you very much for everything. And stay safe and stay healthy.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.